So let me try to solve these questions one by one. What is the maximum loss in a day per the share of a company? So this we are based on close minus open spread. So I want to find out what is the maximum loss, which is as good as getting the least value out of this. That is the maximum loss. So if I want to get the least value, there are multiple ways. Either I could have sorted, or I can take a filter wherein I can take within that filter, I'll take the bottom one, right? I'll perform a filter for this wherein I will take the top 10, wherein I'll go with the bottom and I'll say bottommost one. Now I'm getting it as minus 24.55. So this is the way I'm selecting more than 24 because the loss is more than 24 here. So I could have easily selected this as the option. Right? There are multiple ways of doing the same. I could have found out the minimum value. Right? I could have found out the minimum value as well using the min function. And that also could have given me the same thing, minus 24.55, which is more than 24. So I can mark this one as the answer. Out of the following dates, in which of the following days did the company have the lowest daily return? So I want the lowest daily return. So the lowest daily return is nothing but the difference between the closing and the opening price. So I want to find for these 4 days which day is the return the lowest. So I can very well do for each of the 4 days I can go and do the checking, or if I want to have a quick kind of stuff, let me enter the dates 12th May 2014 and 5th September 2013, 27th July 2011, and I can also put 15th February 2016. Now for these 4 days I can very well find out have the lowest daily return. So I can take this daily return here within the day, what was the change, and I want to find out which of these days is having the lowest return. So I could very well do a VLOOKUP wherein I'm looking up for this particular date within this particular region. Right, I'll put dollars so that this region does not get freezed. So I'm looking up for this particular date within this region, and for that, wherever the date is matching, I want this column value to be displayed, the 13th column. Right, so I can very well use this 13th column value and it's an exact match. So I'm getting that on 12th May the return is 20.8, and I will drag it across here saying this is 16.95, on 27th July it is 24.25, and on 15th February it is 18.65. So the question is on which of the following days did the company have the lowest daily return? The lowest is coming out on 5th September 13. So I'll be marking this as my answer. In how many days out of the given period did the total turnover of the company lie between 100 crores and 500 crores? So either I could have done a filter, so probably I don't want to do those filters, I'll use the formula base itself. So the question is, in how many days out of the given period the total turnover of the company is between 100 crores and 500 crores. So I could have used the count ifs function, right? Count ifs, Now I'm talking about the total turnover greater than how much? 100 crores. 10,000, 1 lakh, 1 crore. No, this is 10 lakhs, 1 crore, 10 crores, 100 crores. Correct? 1,000, 10,000, this is 1 lakh, 100 crores. And I want the other thing, the total turnover should be less than or less than equal to, doesn't matter because hardly it will have any kind of a difference. 5 crores, 50 crores, 500 crores. Now when I look at it, there are 22 days on which this is happening. So I could directly mark the answer as 22. What is the difference in the average closing price of the stock on Mondays and the average closing price of the stock on Tuesdays for the given period? So I have to find average closing price. So it's better that I find for all the days so that I can take the difference. So for that I require a column for days. So let me take it as a weekday column wherein I am using the weekday function on the date. Right? So I am using the weekday function on the date. So this comes out to be the Thursday and so on. So these are the weekdays. Now I can very well create a question saying for all the weekdays, I'll set up my weekdays 1, 2, I'll put for all 7. And for these weekdays, what is that I need to find out? Average closing price of the stock. So closing price. And I wanted the average. So I'll use average if. I'm using average if. The range is within this. The criteria is this particular weekday. I want to find the average closing price. So the average closing price on a Sunday is this much. Average closing price on a Monday, Tuesday, so on are this much. The question is difference in the average closing price of the stock on Mondays, average closing price of the stock on Tuesdays. So I need to find out the Monday minus the Tuesday. Monday minus Tuesday. Coming out to 0.799. So approximately 0.8. If you are rounding up to 3 decimals, it's working out to 0.8. So this is what would be the number that I would be choosing. Right? Then, based on the data for the entire period, on which date did trading take place on a Sunday? Now that we have already found out the weekdays, I can simply filter out on weekday, wherein I will be choosing only the Sunday. So there is only one Sunday on which the trading has happened, and that is 3rd November 30. So directly I'll mark my answer as 3rd November 30. Alright, again let me remove the filter. Then, in how many days do we see the spread close minus open, at least 90% of the spread high minus low during the entire period? So I want the close minus open spread to be at least 90%. Right? So that is where I'll use if function. So I'll say if close minus open spread is greater than or equal to, because we are saying at least 90% of the spread high minus low. So 90% which is 0.9 times, or if you want it, you create one more column, 90% of high minus low. In case you are not comfortable in one single shot, you will first create 90% of high minus low, which is nothing but, you can take it as 90% multiplied by high minus low. Okay, this is the 90% of high minus low. Then we'll use our if function saying if this particular value, which is the spread close minus open, is greater than 90% or greater than or equal to 90% of high minus low, I will set it, let's say, as 1, otherwise I'll set it as 0, so that I can simply sum them up. So I'm setting these things. So these are the days on which the close minus open is higher than or greater than or equal to 90% of open minus 90% of high minus low. So if you sum them up, number of days in which close minus open is at least 90% of high minus low, you can sum up all these numbers, which is giving me that there are 15 days. So directly I can mark 15 as my answer here. Then, what is the difference in the average number of shares traded between the days where percentage delivery quantity to traded quantity is above average versus below average? So I have to first find out whether the days are above average, percentage delivery quantity to traded quantity. I want to find it whether it is above average or below average. And in that, I want to find out the average number of shares traded. Right? So let me take this is a complexity out here. I want to find out percentage delivery quantity to traded quantity. I want to find out the average first. Right? So average percentage traded quantity to delivery quantity. So I am taking the average of this column. So which is 39.87. That's the average, 39.87. So I can find out the days which are above average, which are below average. So the days, I can categorize them. I'll take above average versus below average. So I will simply say if this value is greater than this particular value, I'll put dollar, so that, or I can type in 39.87, whatever it is. If this particular value is greater than this value, then I'll call it as above average. Otherwise, I'll call it as below average. Alright. So I have one category that I have created. Some of them are below average, where the percentage delivery is lesser than the average. Some of them are above average, where the percentage delivery is above the average. Now what is that I want? Difference in the average number of shares traded. So we require here below average day as well as above average day, and I want to find out average shares traded. Average shares traded, so I'll use the average if function now again. So within this range, I want, this is the criteria, and for this criteria I'm looking at the shares traded. So this is the average number of shares traded on the below average days. The same thing when I take it here, this is the number of shares traded on the above average days. So if I am looking at the difference between the 2 days, which is working out to this minus this, which is lying at around 2,42,000. So because it is 2,42,000, so here I am taking it as is above average versus the below average. Okay, so I have to take it the other way. Above average minus below average, which is working out to minus 2,42,000. So minus 2,42,000 is between minus 3 lakhs to minus 2 lakhs. So which is what is helping me to make the answer minus 3 lakhs to minus 2 lakhs, which is the B. Then comes, in which month is the average of all the daily profits measured by the spread close minus open the highest? The average I am finding out, but it is month wise. So let me find out the month again. So I am using the month function, month of this particular value. Alright. So these are the months. So let me try finding out the month wise numbers. So month 1, 2. Let me take the months up to let me remove the formattings out here. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I require one more month. So these are the months, and I am interested in finding out average of all daily profits. Daily profits. So I'll take again average if within this month column I'm going with this as the criteria, and my average daily profit is measured through this spread close minus open, which is working out as the average daily profit for the January is this much, average daily profits for February is this much, and so on. And now I can very well find out which one is having the highest by doing a conditional formatting top one item. I can go for the top one item, so it looks like the average daily profit is highest in the month of March. So I can very well mark this as my answer. Then, which year is the most volatile year for the stock as measured by the standard deviation of the daily profits year-wise? So I want to find out year-wise standard deviation of the daily profits, and I have to choose from the years given below only. So what I can do for standard deviation, the better thing is I rely on the pivot table. So I select this whole thing. I say insert a pivot table in a new sheet, wherein I'll drag my years. Okay, years are not yet there, so let me create my year column as well before I create the pivot. So let me create one more column here, which is the year column, equal to year of this particular date. So we have year column as well. Now let me take the pivot table for the whole thing, wherein now I'll drag the year. What is the question here? Which year is the most volatile year for the stock as measured by the standard deviation of the daily profits year-wise? So I have to drag the daily profits here. The daily profits are nothing but spread close minus open. But I'm not interested in the count, I'm actually interested in the standard deviation of the same. So I could take either this standard deviation or standard deviation P, whatever it is. So this is how the standard deviations are lying. But my question is, out of these years, which year is the most volatile year? Most volatile is the year that is having highest standard deviation. So if I see between 12, 13, 14, 15, these are the 4 years. It looks like 14 is having very high standard deviation, so more volatile. So my option will go for 2014. Alright. How many times in 2015 did the difference in the closing price of the stock on 2 successive days cross 20? So I have to find the difference in the stock on 2 successive days. Right, so let me create a difference column. So here I'll find the difference as difference between the closing price of this day minus the closing price of the previous day. So this is the difference, right? So these are the daily differences that are existing. But my question is, how many times in 2015, so I have to say in 2015, the difference in the closing price of the stock on 2 successive days crossed 20. So it could be either on the positive side or on the negative side, because the difference is 20. So it could be a positive 20 or a negative 20. So what is that I can do? I can very well set, first I can look out for positive 20, but I need the years only 2015. Alright, so this is where I can say count ifs I will use, right? Count ifs I am going to use, wherein my first criteria is the difference greater than 20, and the second criteria is the year is 2015. I'm getting that there is one period, one day in 2015 where the difference has crossed 20. Similarly, I can put on the lower side as well, right? When I say difference cross 20, it could be on the downside as well as on the upside. So I'll use my count ifs, wherein I'm saying this difference less than minus 20 and the year being 2015. So the difference has crossed 20 again on one more occasion here. So there are 2 days on which the difference has crossed 20, right? I did not say about 20. So the difference has crossed 20 could be on either of the sides. So I could say here that there are 2 days on which the difference has crossed 20. So I am marking this as my option. What is the lowest spread, high minus low, on those days where the spread close minus open is exactly 0? So I want to find out those days where the spread close minus open is exactly 0. So better thing is use a filter. The spread close minus open, I want it to be 0. So I remove all the values and I'll select only the 0 for the spread. Right, I don't want any of these values. I will only use 0 for the spread. Okay, so whenever the spread is exactly 0, so these are the days in which the close minus open is exactly 0. I'm finding out what is the lowest spread, high minus low. So if you see the spread high minus low, this is the lowest or this is the lowest. So I can very well say that 3.85 is the spread which is the lowest out of all those days where the spread close minus open is exactly 0. So I can very well mark 3.85 as my option choice here. Then define XYZ as the difference between the current day's closing price and the simple average of the previous 5 days closing price. So what is that? XYZ. So I'll define a new column called XYZ, which probably initially I'll not have the value because I need to take it as a difference between the closing price and the average of the previous 5 days closing price. So I'll take this as, if I'm doing it from this period, it is nothing but it is the difference of the closing price of the day minus the average of the closing price of the previous 5 days. That is what is the question. Define XYZ as the difference between the current day's closing price and the simple average of the previous 5 days closing price. On which day out of the following days is the XYZ value the highest? Okay, so I am finding out the difference here. Current day's closing price minus the closing price with average of the closing price over the previous 5 days. In which of the following days is the XYZ value highest? So I am looking at the days in which this is highest. So I could again go with simply finding out 19th May 2014. Then I am taking 1st March 2011, 12th May 2014, and I have taken 14th May 2014. So I can do a VLOOKUP for this particular date, and for my table array I'll take this whole thing, but I'll put dollars so that even if I drag it, okay, the lookup value is this one. The table array, I will choose this whole thing. The column index, I need that XYZ column. XYZ column is there in the youth column, which is the 21st column, and range lookup is 0. So I am simply getting that the difference is 51.31 on 19th May. And if I drag it across, yes, because I am using, I did not put a dollar out here for the A to U. It's better that I put dollars so that I can drag them correctly. So here it comes out, it is 51, it is 34.49, 32 and 30. So the question is, on which of the following out of the following days is the XYZ value the highest? The XYZ value is highest on 19th May 14. So this would become my answer out here. How many instances occurred till date in 2016 where percentage delivery quantity to traded quantity is either more than 90% or less than 10%? Right, I can use again percentage delivery quantity is either more than 90% or less than 10%. So I could very well use my OR statement, right? So I'll put an OR statement saying OR percentage delivery is greater than, what is the number? Percentage delivery is greater than 90%, or percentage delivery is greater than 90%, or I am setting it as percentage delivery is less than 10%. Right? If required, I can put equal to also, but that's okay. So I'm putting it as greater than 90% or less than 10%. So the question is coming out as in how many instances occurred till date in 2016 where percentage delivery quantity to the traded quantity is either more than 90% or less than 10%. So overall I have looked at where all it is either more than 90% or less than 10%. Now I can find out, I can do a count if, right? So I'll do a count if, or I'll do a count ifs, because the year has to be 2016. So I will set this year to be 2016, and the second thing is this value should be equal to true. So that way when I am trying to find out, it is coming out as 4. So there are 4 instances in 2016 where the percentage delivery to the traded quantity is either greater than 90% or less than 10%. So I'll mark this answer as 4. And in how many days in the entire given period are the 4 prices open, high, low and close greater than the previous day? So again I can use the OR, right? So from here if I am trying to find out the OR function, so I want all the 4 open price, so this value greater than this value greater than this value, then this value greater than this value, going with this value greater than this value. I want to find out how many days are there when such thing has actually happened. So these are the truths over the entire period. I have to simply count how many truths are there. So I am doing a simple count if. Within this I am counting how many truths are there. Oh, I require all of them to be met, right? So I require and, not an or, sorry. I will be using and instead of or because I want all the rules to be met, not one. So because I want all the rules to be met, I'll use and function, and I'm using count if. Within this, I'm looking out for the number of truths. The number of truths are coming out to 308. So I can very well mark my option choice as 308. So that's how we can solve this paper altogether. If you have any further queries regarding this, you can very well send me a mail regarding your doubt. Right? You can mail it to me back. All right.